Didn't come out. Okay.
You ready? We would like to welcome everyone out to our city council meeting this evening, Wednesday, August 8th. We need to excuse our mayor this evening. He's involved over at the county fair with our city royalty for a little while, so he'll join us a little later. So we'll excuse him for the first part of the meeting. I've asked Councilman Clough if he'll give our opening prayer, and Councilman Ward will lead us in our pledge of allegiance. City royalty for the last.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are grateful for this, our chance to come discuss the affairs and needs of Washington City, Utah. At this time, we ask Thee, Father, that each of us who are in charge and given the ability to make decisions on the benefit of those who live within this boundary, that we may do so with respect and with accountability to the Constitution of this great country and the rights and liberties which we have. We ask Thee, dear God, to bless this country with peace, both in our leadership and our citizens, that we may promote those activities in our work and our action in a way that may make this place a place of prosperity, a place of liberty and goodness. We ask Thee, Father, this time that as we are in a season of rain, that we may be able to receive the rain necessary and be able to support the rain with the facilities which we have. We pray that Thy guidance may be with us and that Thy blessing may be upon this land. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Clough and Councilman Ward. Appreciate your. We do have a need to move item 5 down below item 10B on our agenda. And with that, I'll look for approval of the agenda with those changes.
Down below which one?
10B to the end of the agenda.
Okay. Yep. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make the motion that we approve the agenda with the change of moving item 5 down below 10B.
Second.
Motion for approval by Councilman Belliston, second by Councilman Ward.
Ward, aye. Clough, aye.
Granger, aye.
Belliston, aye.
Turek, aye. Item 2 is announcements. Are there any announcements that need to be made tonight?
School starts on Monday. Make your celebrations now.
There we go. Item 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Any to declare this evening?
I do, Mayor Pro Tem, on item 7C. I'm going to stay out of that. I'm expressing interest in pursuing a couple lots in that project.
Okay. Councilman Belliston abstaining from item 7C. Any others to declare? If not, we'll move on to item number 4, our consent agenda. Our consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from council meetings 724 and 725 of 18. Also a final plat. Consideration to approve the final plat for the views at Coral Canyon Phase 2, located approximately Highland Parkway. And also item C, special events, consideration to ratify a special event for the Movie in the Park to be held at the Heritage Park on August 4th. That was has been held, I'm assuming, so we're just ratifying that after the fact. And also a consideration to approve a special event for the 2018 Pineview High School Homecoming Parade coming up on September 19th. And that would be for our parade route.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes, the final plat for the views at Coral Canyon, special events regarding the Movie in the Park, and the Pineview High School Homecoming Parade.
Motion for approval by Councilman Granger, seconded by Councilman Clough.
Ward, aye. Clough, aye.
Granger, aye.
Belliston, aye.
Turek, aye. Item 6, plat amendments. Consideration to approve a request for an amend and extended preliminary plat for the homesteads at Stookie Farms. The purpose for this amendment is to include the addition of Village 10 and eliminate a portion of the proposed lots and now include a larger common area. The extended plat proposes 72 lots, approximately 37.39 acres, which is allowed within the PCC zoning and densities. A large park are included as existing water well and will provide additional amenities to the neighborhood in the form of trails and parks. Kathy, you taking that tonight?
Yeah,
Good to see you.
thank you. Good evening. The applicant is requesting approval of an amended and extended preliminary plat for the homesteads at Stuckey Farm subdivision located approximately 300 North Rock Creek Drive. This subdivision is located within Stuckey Farms PCD. The amendment is to redesign the west half of Village 5, dropping home sites and adding a newly approved open space feature, and also to incorporate Village 10 into the preliminary plat boundary area. Village 10 is 13.5 acres that carries a very low density residential designation as part of the PCD project plan. The newly proposed homesteads at Stuckey Farms is changing from 87 original approved lots to 108 proposed lots, and from the original 35.75 acres to the proposed 43 plus acre boundary area subdivision. This includes a newly created open space area in the middle of the subdivision. Staff has reviewed the proposed amendment and extended preliminary plat and finds it conforms to the PCD zoning that is part of the Stuckey Farms Planned Community Development approval. The subdivision is also in compliance with the subdivision ordinance of the city. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their July 18, 2018 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the amended extended preliminary plat for the homesteads at Stuckey Farm subdivision. The city council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. And they are the standard ones that were the original findings and conditions. There wasn't anything to be added.
Any questions for Kathy or comments, discussion?
Just appreciate the additional open space, attention to trails. Just thank you.
Just dovetailing on that, the one concern or I guess question that I had was with that open space is the accessibility to it. It looks like it's very accessible to those homeowners that live against it, but I don't see any parking at all. You come in and hit the cul-de-sac, and unless we do something hammerhead or something, that cul-de-sac for some parking, there's none there. So I don't see any use for accessibility, I guess, for those homes that may have a desire to drive. Is that a question maybe for Carl to
Yes.
address those
I
concerns
just
or
wanted to make sure
ideas?
Carl was here before I said Carl will answer it.
Maybe it's not a concern for the council. As I looked at it, my first thought was, for those homeowners that live along, it's a great open space and usability, but for those that live 2 streets down, obviously, I guess we encourage walkability, but sometimes when you've got 2 little kids and you want to just throw them in the car and run to the park for a minute, I think it would be appropriate somehow to at least accommodate some parking in there.
What's the plan for the open space? Excuse me, what's the plan for it? Is it gonna be park structures, or is it gonna be just landscaped, or?
It's basically landscape.
Desert type landscape, so this native,
No,
it'll be a grass area, so the kids can be able to
play and things like that.
field type area.
How hard would it be to add some parking on that cul-de-sac?
I don't think it would be difficult to add a little bit.
Yeah, I would say it'd be,
It's
just
a parking lot, but
just kind of hammer
five,
at it a
six
little
stalls or
A
something.
couple of car
yeah, I'd say,
stalls.
yeah, if we had 5 or 6, you just kind of hammer headed that a little bit to where we could get 5 or 6 in and out of there. I think that would be appropriate and probably help your open space to be more user
That
friendly.
wouldn't be a problem.
I would just like to add a comment that I've been very impressed with how Stuckey Farms has both pushed for open space and done many things with support of their residents. And it's been interesting, almost every time there's a change, I usually get an approval from the HOA or a board of people super excited for changes. I just like to commend you on how you're working with your residents and improving their quality of life. We appreciate your development within our city.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Carl, that, pardon me, that well that's in the middle of it, is there a structure over that, or is it?
There will be something around it when it's finished. I haven't decided exactly what yet, quite frankly.
Do you need access to that particular well for any reason?
We will have access through it, through the open space down there.
Are there trails that lead right into that open space? I can't see where.
There will be trails that lead to that also. We've got trails and walking paths throughout the whole development. That will continue. There's a trail here on that side.
The question was asked about your intent of the open space. Is it natural ground, or are you put grass in there? What are
We will put in grass in there.
all of it will be a grass
Pretty
field?
much. We're lucky to have water.
Yeah, yes, you are. Any other
That
questions
makes it-
for,
That open space there, just so that you know, it will be large enough for a soccer field.
I wonder if you're gonna put any
So that
recreation
we
in.
can do different uses for it. So
great,
It's got a well in the middle of it.
it does, but not right in the middle.
Okay.
one of those obstacles you just played soccer around.
Exactly. Make that a goal.
That's right. That's right. Any other questions for Carl?
No, it's just gonna be a question.
Okay, thanks, Carl. We'll go ahead and look for your motion then.
I just make a motion that we approve a request for an amended and extended preliminary plat for Homestead to Stuckey Farms with the additional condition that they put at least 5 but preferably 6 parking stalls in that cul-de-sac area.
Second. Motion for approval with the added one condition from Councilman Bellison, second by Councilman Clough.
Ward aye, Clough aye.
Fraser, aye.
Ellison, aye.
Terry Kite. Item 7, preliminary plat. Consideration to approve a preliminary plat for Stanson Estates located approximately 3200 south and 300 east.
The applicant is requesting approval of preliminary plat for Sampson's Estate subdivision located at approximately 32 south and 300 east. The applicant is proposing 14 lots on an area of coverage of 14.86 acres. The zoning designation at this particular location is agriculture 20 and single-family residential 15,000 square foot lot minimum. The surrounding zoning is R8.5 and A20 to the west and A20 to the northeast and south. This preliminary plat request is in follow-up to the recently approved R115 zoning of this parcel. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions that the preliminary plat is outlined. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at the July 18, 2018 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of preliminary plat for Sampson's Estate subdivision to City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. There is an extra condition, number 12. When time for final plat approval, a note will be added to the general notes stating that this is surrounding area are designated as agriculture or and ag tourism zone.
I count those and I don't get 14.
Looking for it. That's one of the concerns I have with this property to emphasize.
It's there.
That would be 30.
It's the school.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the very last 2 sentences there on what you just read?
The condition 12. When time for the final plat approval, a note will be added to the general notes stating that the surrounding areas are designated as agricultural and or ag tourism zones.
If you recall, that was a condition that was placed upon the zone change with that we note that on there, so the neighbors so they don't move in and say, hey, just a minute, you're cutting your hay in the middle of the night.
We've talked about signage around this particular property in the past, Councilman Turek, Mayor Pro Tem, apologize at the moment. A concern that I have is this a proper time for us to consider once this moves forward to a final state of development, should we make that a motion to post such signage around it also? Or is that something that's different, like separate?
There's actually, you could do that if you wanted to. There's actually some other things in the works that I think are going to be more beneficial to that. As a whole, this property will be included in this portion of that.
Okay.
That I think would be beneficial. So I don't know if it's so necessary just on this corner block, to be honest with you. Certainly could if you felt inclined, just to protect it.
But I know that's something in motion, so something is in motion relative to what I just requested.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, that's what I want.
I just have to work on a committee to discuss some great ideas that become council very quickly, I hope, that will do exactly what you're talking about, to set the stage and say, look, these are the fields, and agriculture takes place in the fields.
I appreciate that information. As long as, item 12 is posted on there, that what its purpose is, what the adjoining properties have their purpose with. I have no further questions on it.
Any other questions or concerns from the council? If not, I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat for Stamson Estates located approximately 3200 south and 300 east with the conditions that have already been placed on it.
Okay, motion is for approval by Councilman Belliston, second by Councilman Granger.
Ward aye.
Clough, aye.
Granger, aye.
Belliston,
Turek, aye. Item 7B, consideration to approve the preliminary plat for Escondido at Sienna Hills, located at approximately 900 North Grapevine Crossing.
The applicant is requesting approval of the preliminary plan for the Escondido at Sienna Hills subdivision located at approximately 900 north and 2200 east. The applicant is proposing 144 lots on an area of coverage of 23.10 acres. The zoning designation at this particular location is Sienna Hills Planned Community Development, PCD. The surrounding zoning PCD to the north, south, east, and west. This particular neighborhood 6 carries the short-term recreational use designation. This preliminary plat approval request is in follow-up to the recent approved PCD zoning amendment to the overall area of the PCD. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinance as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Parking is always a major concern for these types of projects. Being provided in each twin home unit will have a 2-car garage with associated 2-car driveway. The 3 and 4 collection units will have single car garage with an open stall parking place scattered throughout the project. There are 83 and 4 flex units in the development. There are being provided 133 open parking stalls, giving an extra 53 parking stalls as overflow. That calculates out to be 1.5 extra stalls per 3 to 4 flex units. Also being provided are 13 toy hauler extended parking stalls with a ratio of 1 to 11 stalls per dwelling unit. There's one amenity area being provided at the entrance of the development with associated clubhouse and pool facility. The Planning Commission reviewed their request at the July 18, 2018 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plan for the Escondido at Sienna Hills subdivision to City Council based on the following subjects and following conditions. This one has 2 extra conditions from the usual 1 through 11. 12 is garbage pickup areas will definitely need to be addressed on the project due to the alleyways and private street widths. Number 13, the trail area, whether it's part of the Sienna Hills Master Trail System or the trail as part of this subdivision development, needs to be updated and made part of this preliminary plan.
One of my concerns on this, well, make sure I'm looking at this properly. Kind of in the middle, you can see where there's room for parking for toy haulers and everything. I'm just concerned about how they're able to park something in those places. It seems like a really tight parking area for larger vehicles and trailers. I'm just trying to imagine if I was backing in and out or moving in and out of there, it seems like though they're necessary to the development, I don't see how they could be used.
Flexible.
The angle's not like that.
It's done some at an angle, but the asphalt's 34 feet.
I'll
So,
have Jim come up.
That was the only thing. I think it's beautiful. I was just kind of looking at kind of going, has that been addressed?
It's functional, but the ones on the end obviously are because you got parking stalls across the.
great.
it's
So
just,
you got a lot of room you there to work without.
so I have my own neighborhood at 34-foot asphalt, or 35-foot asphalt.
Yeah.
You know,
Not ideal.
park the boat in it all the time. I mean, it'd be nice if it was on an angle, but I don't see why somebody couldn't use this.
I just think on others have made more of a accommodation. That's all I can see where he's made the accommodation of the parks. Your opinion, Jim?
Yeah, I told 40-foot fifth wheel, so I'm very cognizant of
Can I
that.
get you to say your name?
Tim Raines in front of all these. If you notice, there's an alley straight across from those, where you'll be able to pull partially into the alley and then back up into them. And so we actually moved the unit to put it there so that there'd be that pull into the alley for the extra long units. With Troy, the bolts, the flatbeds hauling side by side, things like that, we easily back in there. But if someone gets a unit that's 35, 40 feet long, they're gonna have to use the alley to get in there. But you can't pull in that alley. So we did align it with the alley for that very reason.
Thank you.
What do you see as far as the trash collection portion of that?
This is,
with.
yeah, this is a mirror image of the casitas you see on the left-hand side. The units are exactly the same footprint, and we do the individual cans in the units. They keep cans in the garage, and then they put them out to the alleyway.
Oh, so they bring them out to
They bring them to
the
the
alleyways. So, okay, so
Works
that's
very
not
well.
Trying to go down.
Yes,
Is there a room in a 1-car garage?
there are 2-car garages in all the units. I think she said there are all 2. They're all 2.
Is that required of them, like covenant in the HOA?
Yes, yes. The HOA covers the shielding. They can't be left out in the open. They're brought out to the street. It's working very well in the casitas project. We looked at common dumpster and things, but people would prefer their individual.
I think it works better personally. I agree with that. So I said, what your collection
To
system.
maintain the dumpsters and things get to be somewhat of a problem. We're having, casitas we're finding about 40 45% are owner occupants, the rest are people that part-time residents. Yeah. Only about a third of those actually. It's not a huge amount.
Common management system.
Yes, that was part of the requirement that we have a professionally managed, that people just can't go to the ERP or internet and rent it themselves, has to go through a rental agency.
Rental agency, and you're limited on, if I remember right, you made a statement earlier about this property and others. This is short-term rental, yes?
Yes.
So you made a statement earlier that only an owner can only own 2 properties, is that?
Yeah, we don't want commercial buyers. No one can own more than 2 units. We don't institutional buyers coming in and buying 20 units and turning them into rental units. So the 2 can go to the same entity, and you can only rent to the number of bedrooms you have. You can't put a soccer team in a 3-bedroom.
That's being done through the same HOA, the same company that administers.
Yeah, this is Ivory.
Right?
Yeah, this is Ivory Homes, and just like Casitas, that'll be encouraged to Casitas. Casitas is working very well.
Do we have that on city record as far as those 2 points there, or is that something that needs to be addressed here?
I'm comfortable if you want to add that.
And I think actually, we may could re-add it again, but I think it's part of the overnight rental.
Policy in that area.
Yeah, part of the overnight rental zone, we replace that, we put that, those conditions on at that time. You can restate them again, so we could.
I think we added that to the PCD approval comments, but I'm more than happy to have it at each stage.
Yeah, wouldn't hurt again, just to keep that way it stays consistent on the record.
Is the property connected to any of your trails?
Yes, and we did update that. I apologize for not giving Kathy a copy. This area up in here is, if you've been out there, that's pretty cool rock formations all along here. And we pulled the units back, and there is a walking hiking trail that runs all the way through here. It goes over and connects with the trail down to the dinosaur tracks. We have quite an extensive trail system in Sienna Hills. That's one of the big amenities of Sienna Hills. It's hiking.
I'm actually really anxious to see this one come together because of where that's tucked up in that little canyon with those rock guys.
This is my favorite area of Sienna Hills. It's really, we really look to try to do bigger estate lots in there, but it's just very limited. There's the hillside on this side here is the same landslide that we had above. It's that same clay rock hillside. So Settler wisely took all the units out of Area 6 when we amended PCD, and we took all the units off that hill. But we had to narrow this up pretty tight because we're not touching that hill. You don't want anything to do with that hill.
You better for a little bit too.
I wouldn't even authorize the geotech engineer to go drill holes on it. I didn't want any part of that hill.
So it looks to me like everything is private drive except for Grapevine Crossing.
Correct. They're all the 34-foot private road cross section inside there.
And no sidewalks.
No sidewalks.
The theory with the amenities at the end is everybody is driving down to get to your pool and amenities area.
And that's why we got so much parking down there. Plus, this amenity will serve as up to sales across the street. That's Ivory Homes project, and it serves. This will be a much bigger pool and clubhouse than you can see. It's going to serve multiple users there.
Can they get to the amenities on that trail system?
Yes, there'll be a trail to it.
So we're not calling that out here.
No, there is a version of this plat that has the trails on it. I apologize, we just didn't give the cap in time. If you remember our master plan, it had the trails on it.
Can you maybe just show us on the screen up here? You're tall enough to maybe point your finger up there and just point out where your trails are going to go, how they're going to connect to those.
There's a trail system that runs out here and along through these rock ledges, comes down through here, it connects across here, it runs up here, comes up through the sails, drops down into the dinosaur tracks, and there's one that runs up to the dinosaur tracks, and another one that runs back over to Casitas. So all those communities are connected with a walking trail.
So it's, and I love the thought of the trail up on the rocks and moving through there, but it's not really, it doesn't really connect to the amenities. It's primarily for.
No, it connects to the development in this area here, and in this area here, and there's a trail system that comes back to the main gate.
So if a resident on the upper end there, the upper third was wanted to go there, they would come.
If someone here wanted to go to the amenity here, they could jump on the trail here, come down, come across to it.
Or they could walk down the street.
Or they could walk through the streets.
You have no trails. Or no
Well,
sidewalks.
if you've driven the existing one that's over there, it's not a heavy traffic project. You know? So,
Well, the traffic is all self-contained, so there's no through traffic, so it's basically people that are in there or
Right.
residents, that's the traffic that's in there, residential traffic.
You know, we looked at putting the pool in the middle like we did in Casitas and in our Casitas project. That's not, our Casitas project, the pool's in the middle right here.
Well, I guess I'm trying to envision, because it's not really residents, it's different people each weekend or each week.
Well, it could be, yeah.
So I'm just, I'm just picturing kids on their own, trying to walk down there, I can't picture any of them going outside the community up and around to come back.
I think most of the residents will walk down the streets as we're feeding people to the pool clubhouse and Casitas. They're all coming on the streets.
What was the reason for your decision to put it on the end rather than? In the middle?
Because it accesses more people into the sales. The next project you see coming up, those people can access that pool clubhouse too. Rather than just two stands.
Jim, on the, what would be the western side of your back road there, where you're parking, you've got your parking areas and some of that, what is that just gonna be landscaped? On the end of your units, you can see between your alleyways, you can now get a parking.
All the interior common areas in here will be fully landscaped.
Okay, that's exactly what I was.
The only thing that we won't touch is beyond the boundary here at all, 100%.
I was just looking on the western side of the road.
There's a trail, 10-foot paved trail runs along here, and this whole road, this whole Grapevine Crossing, there's no load, it's a no-load road, there's nothing running that road, and that'll be a landscape corridor, just like the rest of San Diego. With the 10-foot trail meandering along that corridor. That's a wide road, but you can see we've got a lot of extra open space in there also. I don't know, Denise, Kathy, do you have the master plan of San Diego? That would just help you see if you remember that from the zone change.
We're not dealing with any lighting at this phase or.
There's not, yeah, all the lighting's on the units now, protect the night sky, so.
I guess I'm just gonna say this out loud in the room, I'm hoping that we're not kind of giving it a pass with it, with the sidewalks and other things that we would be more stringent on if it was going to be occupied by residents full term where it's short-term rentals. I think that it needs to have the ability to grow gracefully into whatever it becomes. And it's been presented to us that one of the things that will likely happen is that owners of this will end up living there. And
have you driven the other project across the way?
I have. I probably should have done it just before this meeting here, but it's been a little while.
Yeah, I like the sidewalks. The cross section, 34-foot private road cross section, is not unique to Niagara Rentals. It's the same road cross section we use in the villas at Green Springs, which are 1,700 to 2,200 square feet, single-family detached homes, and they don't have sidewalks. It has a trail system going up to the reserve. So that 34-foot road cross section, it is a pedestrian-friendly street that's used throughout the community. It's not unique to Niagara Rentals. It's not something that we've adopted or
But
created.
that's something that the council is kind of We've been increasingly picky about. Councilman Belliston, did you have a point you're gonna try to make?
I've spent a fair amount of time in the other project over there. I've yet to see issues. You know, it's not like the streets are clogged with, you know, kids running back and forth, or there's traffic issues or things like that, so.
Our private streets actually are functioning better than our public streets in CMNLs because there's no parking on private streets and we have all that off-street parking. On our public streets where you park on the road, there's only,
That narrows it down quite a bit.
there's only, help me Mike, I think 4-foot difference of asphalt between the private street and public street. And where we don't allow parking on the private street, the private streets are more open, maneuverable road than our public streets are.
And how are you maintaining that, by signage and by HOA covenant?
Signage and HOA. And to be honest with you, the best way to handle off-street parking is make sure you have, or no on-street parking, is make sure you have adequate off-street parking. People have a place to park, they're parking. If you don't give them enough, you can see we've got, I think, 40 or 50 additional off-street parking stalls here to accommodate that.
So it's basically said that if there was any walking to happen within the interior, not using the trail, that we as a council are planning that people walk down the streets because we feel like the traffic is minimal enough that walking on the streets is no problem.
There's no through traffic in this, I mean.
Because the thing is, I can consider a kid, or I can walk an adult, but I see families pushing grandma and, you know, down the mountain road. I mean, I hate to pull the card on the different family scenarios, but this is a family scenario event. People are coming in. I'm concerned about the precedent we set, though it may not have caused an error issue. I don't see why we would stray from pushing for pedestrian safety in you know, motorized areas. Even if it's one side, I mean, it doesn't have to be both sides, but come on.
I'll share my own experience of raising a family in a planned unit development that had no sidewalks in it, and our pool was at the other end of it. There again, I didn't turn my kids loose, I walked with it down there, but I never felt a safety issue in that. There again, it was all localized traffic. Now there again, it wasn't nightly rental. It was owner occupied as far as that goes. But I never felt unsafe walking, and we used the roadways to walk.
We've been doing PUD developments in Washington County for 30 years. And none of the PUD developments over that 30-year period have sidewalks.
When you look down at my neighborhood I live in now, Pine View Estates, we got no sidewalks.
In fact,
walk in the streets.
Washington City has a wider private road cross section than the city of St. George. Your private roads are bigger than the city of St. George's.
Jim, I'm sorry, did you mention on this particular project, I know you were talking about this project, did you mention, does this one not have on-street parking?
No, no private roads have on-street parking.
They do.
They do not have
They
on-street.
do not, and I just want to point this out, this is becoming an interesting issue for us from an operational standpoint in the city. We're actually finding greater safety issues with our children with on-street parking because of them coming out of the cars. I just found out that we had a couple of complaints. They're trying to change this with the HOA, but Pine Valley Townhomes will not allow cars to be parked in the driveway because they don't want oil in the driveway. So all the cars are up and down the street, and there have been several near misses because the children are coming out between the cars. So I actually absolutely agree that if we're going to take a position with anything, we got to look at that on-street parking, and I know this council has had that discussion, even more so than the sidewalk, because that's becoming a greater risk for us on these on-street parking with these potentially heavily populated kid areas.
And I really appreciate your concerns, and I understand where you're coming, but having 30 years experience in PUDs in Washington County, using this exact mode of private roads with no sidewalks, they function very well. It's kind of the look and the feel that people are looking for.
And every one of these are called out to have a two-car garage.
I think that's a two-car garage. The twin homes, the duplexes along the exterior have driveways in front of them. The other one are alleyways.
And how many say that again?
These units here, the darker units,
Yeah, I get that.
the duplex, they have a 20-foot driveway in front of them that you can park in
You
front.
said something about the alleys.
These, all the garages are on the alleys.
So there's no driveway into them, you pull into the garage.
Actually, the sidewalk to the front door is between them off of the street.
Man, the front of the
Between them
units,
off of the streets.
these courtyards here, these are the front of the units where there's no streets. This is your front door, and there's sidewalks, meandering sidewalks and landscaping in between units. So your front unit is looking out onto the courtyard. The back of the unit, you access off an alley. You look at that, you think of typical street, you think that the front of the unit's on that alley. No, that's the garage door, the alleyway. The other side is the front, and that's a landscape meandering sidewalk.
Similar, we've got some of those at Stuckey Farms. I think it's the cottages, if I remember right, very similar concept.
And as people go through the development to neighbor to neighbor to neighbor, they're not on the streets, they're in those interior sidewalks walking.
So, on the interior houses, how much visitor parking do you anticipate you can put in here? I've tried to count these, but it looks like you planned for a lot of visitor parking to handle those interior walkways.
I think we've got something like 40 or 50 more than the ordinance requires. I don't have my glasses, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you for your efforts.
Extra 53 parking stalls. So we have an extra 53 from what the ordinance requires.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that in our dialogues with Bill Vista that we insisted on sidewalk, but those aren't through roads. And we did not approve short-term rental for that subdivision. So.
We only required it on that one road, because the other areas,
Yeah.
we didn't require it there. So,
Well, I would look in the long term for us to have consistency, but there are some differences here. So,
Well, the main reason I looked at that one, they had a trail connecting into that. The trail led straight to a street rather than a sidewalk that they can connect onto. So to me, it only makes sense to say, if we're gonna have a trail coming through there, let's give them someplace to go rather than dump them in the street. So that's the main difference.
sometimes differences with solid and hopefully.
Yeah, no, great discussion, great thoughts, no doubt. Any other discussion or questions?
Just before we get to a motion here, can we just review the 2 points that the planning commission has on here? Is that 11 and 12? Is that what I understand it right, or is that?
You just read the conditions that are on that. if you
The
look at it.
extra conditions, because we have the standards.
The 12 and 13.
Is it 12? So I'm not seeing, maybe in the wrong section, I'm not seeing 13.
Are you under 7B?
Yeah.
I've got a 13.
Would you mind just reading those for the record?
Sure, yeah. Garbage pickup areas will definitely need to be addressed on this project due to alleyways and private street widths. 13, the trail area, whether it's part of the Sandy Hills Master Trail System or the trail is part of the subdivision development, needs to be updated and made part of this preliminary plan.
Just need to make sure that those get on at that. Paint this kind of show us where those trails are, but we need to make sure that they're added onto this plan.
We've added to a version, it just hasn't made it to this meeting.
Any other discussion, council? Not, I'll look for a motion.
Yeah, with that, I'll go ahead and make a motion. We approve the preliminary plat for Escondido at Sienna Hills, located approximately 900 North Grapevine Crossing with the attached conditions.
Okay, motion is for approval by Council Nelson,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilman Granger.
Before we go to a vote on that, can I amend those conditions to make sure that we have the garage? No, let's see, it was the garbages are by HOA covenant, the garbages are required to be in the garage and kept off. Are we picking up the 13 automatically with this? Because that doesn't come to the planning commission unless we.
The trail system.
On them.
No, it just needs to be noted, and I think it was noted as a condition that would need to come on with the plat. So that's been noted by motion.
Okay, and
So it probably is a good idea, because it was part of the trash, that we clarify what that trash is, so I like where you're going.
then also that by HOA covenant, that only the owner can only own 2 properties, and that rental limits are limited to bed space within the facilities, and that there is no on-street parking by HOA covenant.
You okay with those amendments? So basically, re-edifying what's.
So technically.
Is that already in the HOA?
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with that, if it's already in the HOA?
I think that we just, in the discussion, we said it doesn't hurt to keep them.
That's something I wanted.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And I'll approve it.
So those being amended, have you got those?
Do we re-vote on those conditions since it's a.
There's no vote
amendment
yet.
To the main motion?
No, we're gonna add it to the motion that's on the table right now. So basically that the trash is gonna be picked up out of the alleyways. The alleyways will be brought out and will be kept in the garages. That, there's no on-street parking, which is already in place up there. And the second one, or the third one was,
They only, that's
it's only 2, no,
Oh, the cell, okay.
yeah, only sell up to 2.
And
It's just part of their.
Numbers are limited to the bed space.
And the tenants, not overnight rentals, that's bedrooms.
Councilman Johnston already had the condition 13.
Yes, yeah, we already made that the trail. That's part of it. So, with that, we have the amended motion on the table. It's been seconded by Councilwoman Granger.
Ward aye. Clough aye.
Ranger, I.
Ellison.
Turek, aye. Item 7C, consideration to approve the preliminary plat for the Pesos? Paseos. I was gonna ask Jeff how to say that over here, but he was deeply engrossed. Paseos at Sienna Hills, located at the north end of Great White Crossing.
The applicant is requesting approval of the preliminary plat for the Paseos at Sienna Hills subdivision located at approximately 900 north, 2200 east, extension of Great Vine Crossing. The applicant is proposing 115 lots on an area coverage of 32.46 acres. The zoning designation at this particular location is Sienna Hills Community Development, PCD. Surrounding zoning is PCD to the north, southeast, and west. This particular neighborhood 7 carries the short-term recreational use designation. This preliminary plat approval request is in follow-up with the recently approved PCD zoning amendment of this overall area of the PCD. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances related to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Again, parking is always a major concern in these types of projects. Being provided in each home unit will have 2 car garages with associated 2-car driveway. There are being provided 94 open parking stalls scattered throughout the development. Also being provided are 11 totally powered extended parking stalls with a ratio of 1 to 10 stalls per dwelling unit. There is 1 amenity area being provided for the development with associated clubhouse and pool facility. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their July 18, 2018 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plat for the Hayes at Sienna Hills subdivision to the city council based on the following findings, subject to the following conditions. This one also has 2 extra conditions beside the regular ones. 12, the cul-de-sac or hammerhead turnaround design will need to be submitted and approved by both the Public Works Department and the Fire Department.
Is that done?
Pardon me?
Are they?
I'm gonna let Brandon, Matt's back here, I'm sure they,
Kathy, that was right, that was right here. Originally, we didn't show, they thought this was gonna be a hammerhead, but it's really not. It's a continuation of the roadway, the Pullen Clubhouse, so there is not a hammerhead right there. The original version did show that road.
Well, this actually does show the road going through, it's just not highlighted as part of this preliminary plat.
So that road be built in as part of this plat?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, a couple of things. I apologize, Councilman Belston. When you disclose things that.
Councilman Clark, can I hold you 1 second? I think there was one more condition.
I'm getting off early, I'm sorry.
You had one more, you said 2
You're right.
conditions we started.
just, number 13 is no parking signs will need to be installed along the private streets as per the Public Works Department and Fire Department approval.
Now, Councilman Clark.
No, you're only investing in the Grapevine Crossing, the one for Escondido, not at this one, right? I was unclear on which one.
7C is the one, this is the one he conflicted.
7C.
I've expressed an interest in buying some of these lots.
Yeah, so he's not gonna participate.
Okay, so on this one, the other one you hadn't bought anything in.
No, I have no interest in the other.
Okay. All right. Okay, that being said, I'm interested in, we've had some places where they propose things like party pads and interesting things. I'm interested on the end of the road where it's the Plata Circle right there. Why is lot 111 so much larger than all of the other lots and it's not a clubhouse? Oh. Just kind of curious.
Really, it's an isolated, it's a very narrow ridge, and it comes to a kind of a point that widens out. And if you notice, there's not lots kind of on the other side. We just got parking there because it becomes too narrow there. So we basically maximize the developable part of that hill.
Okay.
And the other reason,
Is it just property size that's larger, or is it the actual?
What you're looking on this is a PUD, so those are building pads. Those aren't lots and lot lines. Those are you could put a home the size of that pad. Obviously, they don't. You maximize that.
And this has the same covenants of only private or commercial. And is there a difference between a private and commercial? Only more than 2 individual rentals in this, or for example, Councilman Club goes in and I buy 1, but since I'm in a commercial thing, I could buy 3 or 4, or is it just?
No, we don't want institutional buyers, nightly rentals. If you're gonna nightly rental your units, you can't own more than 2 units.
Okay.
No matter who you are.
And that's what I was just clarifying.
What we don't want there's one in Santa Clara where institutional buyers come in and bought up the majority of the project. And so you have 2 or 3 owners and they're renting it out as a commercial enterprise. We do not want that. We want these individual owners to own these things. If they choose to rent them nightly, they can, but it's not a business per se. That's why we say no more than 2 people can own a unit that's gonna rent them for nightly rentals.
Okay.
Are we the same parking ratio, lot per parking ratio here as the last?
This one's a little different because every house has a 2-car driveway. We meet it and we exceed it. We put some additional parking down below, and we got, you notice, because we couldn't get it across from an alley, we did angle those stalls in this one, so they're a little easier to access.
So how about your toy hauler parking? Is it the same ratio?
1 to 10, yeah. We're actually on that one, this one unit for, one toy hauler unit for every 10 units.
One question, Jim, just thinking out loud, maybe a little bit up off of, is it Marfield Way? Where we've got the bend on the end of it. Up here, we've got parking on both sides. But the one thing that we don't have in any of that cluster up there is any toy hauler or deep parking. What would be the feasibility of one side or the other of that, where the parking's already there, deepening some of those stalls just to give, otherwise you're pushing everything down into the lower section for toy hauler parking.
We'll happily turn those into deeper parking.
That was my thought.
Yeah, I think that makes good sense. Be maneuverable with that, not the one thing.
That's what I thought, where you got it right there, makes
Yeah,
it kind
I think that's a
of
good-
prime spot for it.
I think that's a good
What the modernity
suggestion.
allows you to do.
Yeah.
I think it certainly would help that area up there to give it some of those, otherwise you're pushing it all down below.
No, I think that's a good idea. Appreciate that.
I just had a question, just to talk out loud, and this is something that's hitting my mind, just to make sure this doesn't become this enterprise of people owning multiple units beyond the two. How would that be enforced? Who would enforce that you can only have two of these particular
On
homes?
essentially be the builder, RV homes.
Well, here's my thing, is this is built, give it 2 years, someone loses their interest, they sell their two. They sell it to the neighbor that has two.
Yeah, once the builder sells off and then you have individual owners, it's written in the CCNRs. So it's up to the HOA to enforce those CCNRs.
So would it be up to the HOA to enforce? And that's the thing I just wanted to talk about loud. I didn't know the enforcement mechanism in this particular scenario.
I mean, the city could enforce it, but you don't probably want to get into that business, so.
Well, that's why, like, are we making a rule or are we just making a fun, new possible thing? And I just don't know how valid this is.
Well, long term, could you ever stay with it? Probably not long term.
Right?
Unless an HOA, you got a good HOA that stayed on top of it.
So I interject on this real quick.
Sure.
My brother's subdivision put in their CCNRs, no more than 10% can be a rental at any one point in time. And so if somebody wants to turn their house into a rental long-term, not short term, this is a long-term rental instead of an owned property. They have to apply and get approval through the HOA. If there's more than 10%, it's automatically rejected. And the HOA enforces that, which is the neighborhood. So they can do that through their own attorney or through.
HOA, it just depends how strong they feel about it.
My experience with HOAs is if there's a reason for an HOA to exist, they usually function very well. If there's a pool, there's a clubhouse, there's private roads, there's a monthly or annual assessment, then the HOAs are governed and run pretty well. What HOAs that don't function very well are ones where there's really not compelling reason for an HOA other than architectural control. And then those things tend to get out of hand.
I would agree with you 100%.
Can you speak to the planning commission's no on-street parking, they're suggesting requiring signage?
We sign it, yeah.
You're signing them already?
Yeah, that's.
You sign into the other subdivision. What we're not completely consistent with our conditions, we're trying to.
Yeah, that's when I heard that condition come up, it's like, I wish we'd have had that on the other one
They're
too.
not quite the same, so
Yeah.
I think we need to reduce these to some.
The Public Works Department requires us to sign no parking on all private roads, so it's kind of a stated.
So we mentioned it here, but we didn't mention it. Yeah. It's already in the code.
It's part of the code covers it.
Yeah,
Is that on all private streets?
No, it's not actually private and public, it's the mission over there, it's based on the width of the road. So the width of the road will determine whether you park on both sides or one side or the other. HOA can decide.
Sorry.
I don't know why you don't know better. It's just a little blurb. It's the small
Yeah.
stuff. The no parking piece is part of the fire code, of course, for access. And so it's based on the width of the road. The HOA can always decide whether they close both sides. Most of his private streets wouldn't require both sides to be closed by the fire code. But if either of those are, which most private streets are, narrower, of course, which would in turn require them to close at least one side, and then it's required by the code to be signed, so that they got to pick a side. And so they got to designate which side is closed, and so in that code, it actually tells them what the sign has to look like and the whole 9 yards. So it's already listed in part of the requirements of the fire code. And I'm sure it's probably in the building code too. There's no that one as well.
For the record, that was Chief Evans speaking, so. Is there questions for Kathy?
Yeah, this is a concern I keep bringing up is are those garages deep enough or wide enough to allow a garbage can, and 2 cars?
These are no different scenario. These are pads, so there can be screened. It would be individual containers, but they can be on the side as long as they're screened.
So the HOA is just that they're screened basically, so they don't have to be in the garage, they just have to be
In the garage or screened.
screened.
But they're
And that's what's similar with the HOA I was in, we put actually behind the house, so we bring them out behind the house to the street. Because they just couldn't be visible from the street.
these don't require to be in the garage. They have to be either in the garage or screened. They can't be seen in the street.
I'm just after bigger garages, I want you to be the.
She's looking for a poster child, so you know.
The only part of my house that I call my own, other than my wife's, is my garage. So I have a big garage.
I guess my only thing talking out loud and all appreciation what's been said is seeing the densities and the houses proposed in this in the past and realizing the interest in Lot 111. It just seems like a great appreciation to the indirect directive efforts of those of you on this council for their work. I know I'm sure it'll be purchased properly and everything else, but it just feels weird. I just like to say the weird and awkward for me as a council member is I found that considering what's been approved and pushed and the rest of the developments adjoining this. Just feels awkward to me.
What is awkward?
Size of your lot.
Oh. The one lot.
The one lot's the size of 6 lots, that lot.
Well,
I'm sure it will be purchased.
I'll be honest, that's what happened is one lot is trying to squeeze 3 in it, like some people
Hey,
would.
I'm just saying the amazing parking, the great lot size, by all means, you compare it to the size of the next largest lot, I can't find one that's half the size of that, let alone a third of the
I don't have
size.
a problem with it.
To my defense and Jim's defense, the design of that predated my interest.
It did, yeah. That was not designed for any one individual. That was simply, this whole project is we're putting lots along the ridges and leaving all the arroyos and all the drainages open space. And so the scenario is this is a little finger of a hill that comes down there and we're trying to get 9 or 10 lots out there. And it just ended up that we couldn't get 2 or 3 at the end, which you normally do on cul-de-sac. You would have 3 lots there. It just didn't make, it made 3 substandard lots. So we'd either do 2 or 3 substandard lots, so we do 1 nicer lot. We chose to do 1 nicer lot. It was that simple.
Yeah, I'm just looking where you have something comparable on Marshall Way, where you ask for additional parking, now $20.
Yeah.
It's comparable, but not a lot. I'll hold that back. It's just, I appreciate the insight and just expressing my feelings.
Yeah, we didn't design that for any specific reason other than we just said, these are building paths. And so people can build their unit anywhere within that path. And out there, someone may want to set it over towards the edge or something more. And you have flexibility rather than us dictate a smaller pad. It just gives someone a bigger option to build a pad. I don't foresee a 6,000 square foot house out there among a bunch of 2,000 square foot houses. That's not going to happen. It could, but I just don't think it would be a foolish investment. I never can do that.
I've always been told to be the biggest one. It's better to be small than bigger.
Yeah.
Any other discussion, council questions, concerns? If not, I'll bring it back to council, look for a motion.
No will here, that will. Mayor Pro Tem, I motion that we approve the preliminary path for Paseos at Sand Hills located at north end of Grapevine Crossing.
Do you mind adding to that,
Oh.
changing that RV parking?
The change with the extension of the RV parking and the cul-de-sac of Maryville Way, listed as item, I believe, there's.
On the turn,
Yeah,
just
just
way to make that.
to make those
What's the name of the
default.
building again?
The deeper parking.
That amendment, yes.
There we go. Thank you. So motion is for approval by Councilman Puff,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilwoman Granger.
Can I make an amendment to the motion there and add the no on-street parking as the planning commission is directed?
That's actually been listed, that's listed as one of them.
That's on there.
Yeah, that's already there.
And then we have the garage, the garbage is required to be screened or in the garage. And then the only two properties may be owned by each entity. And then the short-term rentals are limited by bed space. You said that so much better than I've done twice. But,
Yeah, they're limited by the number of bedrooms.
Any concerns with that addition to the motion? The motion has been accepted with those added. Second has been approved by those being added.
Ward aye. Clough aye.
Granger, aye.
Turek, aye. Item 8, annexation. Consideration to accept the modified request and move forward with the annexation of Long Valley Addition, located approximately 3380 East Washington Dam Road. This is going to be Denise.
So the annexation that we brought to you the last time for this Long Valley area included the Washington Dam Road. Since that time, they've worked really hard with the property owners out there to try to get them to go in and agree to annexing part of the property. The problem was that half of the property's on one side of the road, the other half of the property's on the other side. And so they refused to do that. So they've gone back and changed it to the diagram that you have in your packets where they bypass those property owners.
So basically, we just have one landowner involved at this point.
Yes. So and what's happened is we have a shot clock. So we passed our time limit. So we need to bring it back to you so that I can get a reapproval and we can move forward again with the, we're starting over.
There are a couple other private property owners.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry,
They're
there's
not-
just
not
little ones.
Too small
Just
to
little
agree to go.
So you've got, so there's a total of three, basically, property owners involved. Is there any concern with futuristic, I guess I look at, I don't know, I would look at Council Starkey, I guess, as input on this. Where we have a large property owner like this, can we compel those others that maybe, I don't know whether it's worth our energies and time to try and compel at this point. I mean, obviously, landowners try to work with them.
Yeah, well, there's a formula. I mean, there is a formula that
So we
that
did,
you do
We can't,
when you're doing that. I mean, it's still a formula that you come up with that, I don't,
basically, you can still force the annexation on those if.
I thought state law changed on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, we did have some changes. We'd have to look at that because it's my understanding, I'm with Denise, it's my understanding that the force component kind
Right.
of removed.
Was removed.
Just a question, so,
We could double check.
no,
Yeah,
that's,
we'll
it's
do our
probably not worth our
certification.
while at this point. I mean, we're
Now that
moving
we've
forward,
had
we're
that-
Hold up.
Now that
What's
we've
there?
had, them go out and talk to the property owners and everything else, we'll come back and recertify it, and that's when we'll,
Any other questions from council?
We'll check it.
Does staff, what concerns does this give to our staff?
Any concerns of Long Valley
Concern would be
annexation as
mine.
far as
You got some
being
more
able to
experience with
service,
this than I do.
service those properties and whatnot?
Are you asking about the properties that are not coming in?
No, the properties that are coming in.
The properties.
Well, I'm kind of asking about both. It's a change. If this creates issues for us as a city in the future, because they're not coming in. I think we've kind of gone through the ones that are coming in, but if you've got something you'd like to put in the record now.
The only issue that I have with the properties that are not coming in is the Washington Dam Road. It's a substandard road. It needs to be reconstructed. needs to be widened up, especially with the access to the Southern Parkway there. It creates a little bit more of an issue for us. We're going to probably have to get the county involved to try to get that road widening through there.
To get, what we would need to get right away in order to do that, so there's.
Well, and cost of construction. So not an insurmountable. The property owners that are out there existing now, just recently their water rates have changed because the council had actually approved the new water rate about a year ago, where we actually doubled non-residents' water rate doubled. It was double of a normal resident. Because not being a resident of Washington City, they shouldn't get the same benefit as a resident living here. So the reality is their water bill increase would probably offset what their property tax increase would be, but they'll find that out. So I think they're going to probably in the future be wanting to come in just for the mere fact on that water.
But back to the road, you're just thinking it'll just be a little more extra work to go with.
Well, we're just going to have to work through the county and get through that process to do the road reconstruction.
Right.
Yeah. And as far as the rest of the property being brought in, as far as providing service, we have no issue with that. Prior to them coming in, we met with Jim several times on how are we going to get water, how are we going to get sewer service, drainage issues. We've got that all worked out with him prior to even moving ahead with the annexation.
Great.
Is it appropriate for me to ask here that that's, I presume it's the property tax that these folks didn't want to come in, that was the deciding factor?
More than likely.
So no, especially that rural, kind of just likes the idea of being in county. I know it's just kind of, hey, I'm in the county.
They just don't want the rules.
Yeah, well, that's, like I say, part of it is.
But they want all the services.
And I offered to, at a later, part of the problem, because I met with them, was that I mistakenly thought the water rate had kicked in already, and it hadn't. So they looked at me like I was.
It's like you don't know what you're talking about.
Like I threatened them or something.
I'm glad to know when it kicks in, we're gonna blame you.
Yeah, it's gonna be my fault. But so that argument didn't go very far, unfortunately. But yeah, it was. One was the property tax, and two was just the independent nature of the people that didn't want to go in. I did get a pretty universal commitment from them to work with me on right-of-ways for sewer and road. They see the benefit of that, and I still think there's even a possibility that we could annex and dedicate that road to Washington City when we do that. And I did offer that at any point in the future, because I'm a licensed surveyor, if they wanted to annex their property, I've got all the data, and I would provide them an annexation plan.
Well, that'd be nice if we could get that road.
So I don't think this issue is completely dead. It's just that we've been held up 2+ months now trying to work with them, trying to get them to come along. But because of circumstances, the water rate might be kicked in. We just didn't get as far as we'd like to. But it's not adversarial at all. We have a very good working relationship with those people, and I still hopeful that we can resolve whether it's their annexation or it's just the road and sewer and things like that. They're not opposed to any of that. They don't want increased property taxes, and they're very independent mindset.
Yeah, no, that's, I've shared that same thing. Okay, we're in the county, and we kind of like this being in the county. Any other questions for Denise? Discussions on this item? If not, I'll come back to council for a motion.
That being said, no further discussion, I'd like to make a motion to accept the modified request and move forward with the annexation of the Long Valley Addition located at approximately 3380 East Washington Dam Road, south to Long Valley Road.
Motion is for approval by Councilman Clough.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Belson.
Ward aye.
Clough, aye.
Granger, aye.
Belson, aye. Burrick, aye. Item 9, MOU, consideration to approve a memorandum of understanding between Western States Ventures LLC and Washington City for storm drain impact fee credits for the regional detention pond and storm drain trunk line improvements for our master plan project WAD-02.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. We've done quite a few of these in the past. This is just the MOU where we're giving a credit to the developer for putting infrastructure in that's spelled out in our master plan, this one specifically on the stormwater. Our master plan calls out, and it's in your exhibit B, it's project number WAD-02, and the estimated cost on that was $766,400. When we do these projects with these developers, they actually will get a bid price on it, and their bid price on this project came in at $332,914. That is the only credit they'll receive on the project. And it is for a total of their 70.78 acres. Once they exceed that 70.78 acres, and that is the $4,730 per acre. That 70.78 acres comes out to that $332,000 credit.
So Mike, just for clarification purposes, ultimately this is covering that trunk line that's leaving their property and carrying their stormwater on down to our
line,
to our line on
Dam Road. Correct.
Exactly. So those other properties between the two will benefit from that. That's why we're giving them credits at this point.
Correct. And it is spelled out in our master plan as this is one of the projects that
is master plan.
If someone builds on that in between property, do they pay us for what we paid for the storm drains?
No, this is one that we'd be collecting impact fees on. So that's why they get the credit, because they're getting the credit for the impact fee that would have been paid to construct that one. Also with this project, they are building a basin, but that basin pretty much directly impacts their parcel. But that is a big plus for us because we've had many, many issues in the past where the runoff up that hillside comes down through there and floods those homes down into White Sage development. Brings a lot of debris down, so that will help remedy that issue with that.
So this will benefit other properties other than that, because that was one question or concern I had is they're building a basin, but that basin seems to serve basically their project. Yeah. But obviously it doesn't. It's also protecting.
It serves their project. The good thing about their project is we got a very defined drainage basin because we got the ridge line of the hill. So we have a very, very good idea of the quantity of water that will come down. Now, that hillside isn't in their development, but they still have to deal with that water coming onto it, which will run into the detention basin. We'll pull the sediment out and we'll get it into a pipe and get it out of the area. So we have it directly, it will really help.
The other subdivisions surrounding.
Would you mind walking me through Exhibit C and just making sure I'm not clear on each of the particular elements? Maybe in the monitor there.
Throw it up on the projector.
It's trying.
Oh, I got a great camera.
Yeah, monitor.
Yes.
Yeah, can you zoom in a little? Yeah, that's better. Even if they have to move the paper around a little bit.
So the project that's being spelled out here is this project right here. So that's, what was that, 1,600 feet of 24-inch, 1,600 feet, 24-inch storm drain. And it's actually presently being installed right now.
And the hill slope you were referring to?
So the ridge line is this ridge line right through here. So that gives us our defined area where that rain falls, because when it hits that ridge line, either it's this way or this way. So it's very easy to calculate the drainage off that, those drainage basins. So this yellow outline, this is part of our master plan. This is actually what we call out as a drainage basin in our master plan. And all the green lines with the little boxes in it, those are projects that we've called out in that drainage basin.
And there's a detention basin here, and that's the green.
This green dot.
And can you just talk to me about it, how what guidelines you're measuring the water, the projected water flow through there to size that basin? And then size of the piping based on the water.
So the developer comes in, they have to do a drainage master plan. They have done a very detailed drainage study on it. We review that study to make sure it's going to be an accurate study. If we have any concerns at all, we'll send it out to an independent engineer for a study on this. This one,
When that happens, if you send it out to an independent engineer, does that cost go back to the developer, or is it the city?
the city usually will take that cost when we want to have it reviewed, because if we have an issue with it, normally we're very good at reviewing that. Lester in office is excellent at drainage. Pretty much put them against any engineering. We really haven't had to do that yet. Usually we'll review them in-house. If we find deficiencies, we just send them right back. The engineer that did this study is very reputable, does a very good job on it. So we're very comfortable with it. So what he will do is he'll go in and he'll size with that drainage study based on the flows and our requirements for the flows. That's what that basin will be sized for.
And what, so is that all based on what the engineer is calling out for, or does the city have some standards that they require?
So we have a hydrology manual we have for the city that's what all the engineers need to use. That calls out the storm event, the intensity of the storm, and that's what we designed for. We've set this standard. This is our design standard. This is what we do.
And wasn't that part of what we did as a county-wide thing with our flood control?
Exactly.
Part of what the flood control authority did, but set that standard. So we looked at it and said, really, because we had some engineers that were using this standard, some were using this standard. So we standardized it for the county and said, okay, what is the standard that we designed to?
We, as Washington City, we've been really the leader in hydrology in the county. We've really led the fight. We were the very first one to develop a hydrology manual to give to the contractors, or the developers, so they knew what we were replacing, they knew what to build for, they knew the storm events, the intensity of the events. And as we went into the flood control authority, they basically build a manual that would be used for everybody that's part of the flood control authority, but basically took our manual and just changed a few things in that manual, and the rest of the cities have adopted that.
So then the developer's building this, but because it will be used by other properties, that's.
Well, it's not used by really other properties. It's, the other properties are going to be the open space areas that are not developable, but they have to deal with that pass-through water. They don't have any option. They have to deal with that. So the basin is really only for their development, and the pass-through water that's coming through up the non-developable areas. But like I say, the benefit we're getting is we're retaining that water, we're slowing it, we're removing the sediments, so we're not getting that water passed through down into the subdivisions below.
So that's the benefit.
That's the benefit that we're receiving.
As far as sediment removal in the future, that becomes the city's responsibility?
No, because this basin is not a regional basin. This will be maintained by the HOA. One of our duties with the MS4 requirements on stormwater, we actually have to go out and do an inspection annually on every basin that's in the city.
Mike, though, just clarification, isn't this going to become a city park? I think this basin becomes a city park.
Okay. If this one's a city park, then we.
Yeah, I think this becomes a city park. It says Shooting Star City Park that's coming in. We've been working with Barry on that park. That's going to be a city park.
Yeah. So if it's a city park, then we would maintain the basin.
And you said, so you're reviewing those basins annually. I think we're talking about this a couple of weeks from now, but is there an event-based review? So post-event?
Yes, so after any major event, we go out and do an inspection. So after the last event, we went out and we have several basins up in the north end, the Green Springs area, the Silverstone basins. We're out, we do an inspection on those, we do a report on those, and anything that needs to be repaired, then the inspector actually creates the work order, gets that to the stormwater department, they get out and get the repair done. So yes, after any major event, we do an inspection. Annually, we do inspections. The basins, the smaller basins that are controlled by the HOAs, they do their own inspections. They're trained on doing the inspections by us. And we still go out and monitor those basins annually as well. But we don't do the actual inspection, we just go through and visually check to make sure that they're getting that. Plus, they have to submit their inspection report to us.
And we record against, under our stormwater, under
Post-
that MS4,
yeah.
we record a stormwater
The post-development
maintenance program
agreement.
against every project also.
And you see that on every plat that comes in, that's part of those requirements on that plat, that post-maintenance agreement has to be recorded against the properties.
Any other questions for Mike? Concerns about this MOU? Not, I'll come to the council for a motion.
That said, I move approval of the consideration to approve the memorandum of understanding between Western States Venture and Washington City for the storm drain impact fee credits for the regional detention.
Motion is for approval by Councilman Granger.
Second.
Second by Councilman Belson.
Ward, Club eye.
Granger, aye.
Belson, aye.
Rick, aye. Mayor Nelson has arrived. We'll turn it over to him. Item number 10A, Mayor.
Perfect. I want you to be item number 14.
We've inserted 5 right now.
Five is coming down after 10B, so that's your commissioner.
All right, oh, that's true. Okay. Item 10, agreement, consideration to approve a joint access agreement with the LDS Church, city attorney, and city manager.
This is just in real light and quick overview. Ask questions if you have any. This is just to put into writing, just an understanding with the church. We've had decades of good relationships with our neighbor, the church, in terms of parking, in terms of ability to have folks park. They're using on Sundays for us to be able to use some of their parking during the week. And with the expansion of our veterans park, some of the patios, some of the improvements we made out there also affect, to the extent that it's right next to and adjacent to the church's facilities, just solidifies and kind of adds into a previous agreement we've had with them from the 80s about maintaining those places such as parking where we share them so that we have some type of a understanding of what we have maintenance to do with them, what we have repair work to do with them. And this incorporates those provisions to the extent that some of the improvements in Veterans Park go beyond parking. We try to spell those out more specifically, in particular the church, unlike some of our informal understandings, the church's attorneys like to have it very well spelled out with real estate understanding between each other. And this just kind of walks through each of those elements. We put some retaining walls, so we've made our sidewalk patios higher. We've agreed we're going to put in for example, a handicap parking stall on the northwest corner. So, which I think will be nice for everybody, certainly for the church. It had no real ramp access parking from off of that parallel parking on the street, and that's your last exhibit in here, kind of spelled out with engineers, helpful engineers lay that out. And the city will be making those improvements for the church. And the access agreement, Denise keeps looking at me.
No, the agreement that you just sent me not too long ago, that you wanted to put it in the packet, it's on there now.
Yeah,
you guys have it now.
That's just one element of it.
So you might want to just refresh it.
That
I just
one
wanted to make
element-
sure you had it.
That element is just a temporary construction easement, which the church wanted, and I'm still trying, I still want to convince the church's attorney that we could use a 2-page temporary construction easement instead of a 6-page one, but we'll see how that works out.
So we have two. We have this joint access agreement and we have temporary construction agreement.
Well, the agreement itself is in the form, and it's in the package, it's in the form of an addendum to our 1980 agreement, which this just said, we're doing more than just the parking there. We're now doing, we have facilities that we share together, we have an access that we share together off of Main Street. To the extent that the city has put in short retention wall along the what is that over there?
Southeast.
Yeah, southeast side of the property. It spells that out, indicates that where we've also put that short retaining wall, that we're gonna put a 3-foot decorative railing, steel railing there. That's another exhibit just showing the railing that we're going to place in there. And otherwise, it spells out in the future as we maintain or repairs need to be made, that we split those up according to property lines. Although I think historically, in reviewing that, we're not so sure how much repair work has had to go on, but the relationship's been worked out pretty well. We've just tagged along with that, and yeah, I'm not sure what else, how much more in there. As a part of it, we're also putting some steps into that that side of the building where some of the patio has been raised for the Veterans Park purposes. We'll be putting in a 2-step cement entryway over there, which makes the access a little nicer. And we need to add to that.
So the handicap parking, you said on the northeast side there?
Yeah,
is
so
there gonna be access from that handicap parking?
Yeah,
Curb cut is part of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, in conjunction with the FM group over there. So really quickly, the railing on the retention wall was something we always planned. Steps, of course, would have been planned. The additional item we put in was initially the FM group wanted handicap ramp in the full length of the church. In discussions with them, that does not work well. And I think they realized that creates a little bit of problem when floodwater comes down there as well, because it'll slow velocity and increase ponding. As you look at their ramps, they actually have some ramps, some slopes, I should say, from the curbside to the building, that I'm not sure they even meet the requirements, but that's not our concern. They never have. The closest one that we see that meets the slope requirement is one door off the backside here, furthest to the west. So what we're going to be doing is cutting out one and access, which means one stall goes out. In front of that stall will be a curb cut up to that ramp. They're good with that.
In the, if you switch it over, we'll just show that drawing, and it's in the packet.
And then, again, part of the slowdown is because we've always had shared access on the south side of the building, between the old school, but they wanted all that cleaned up in an agreement, in an easement. And so that's just taken all the easement language. We've had to go through easement language and shared use language and all that sort of stuff. That's kind of slowed it down a little bit. If it would have been just up to these kind of items we were agreeing on, it would have been a little quicker. But the attorneys, and Jeff is correct, the attorneys in Salt Lake just wanted that. So Jeff was saying, well, we'll just attach that to the shared agreement we kind of have from 1984, wherever out here. And so that kind of worked out okay. Yeah, I don't know. Don't get hung up on that one, because what you're going to want to look at is the cross section on this more than it is not a curve. We're cutting straight into the sidewalk, and so it's the cross section we want to look at on that, what it looks like across. But
So basically, we're just improving access and not the church.
I actually was hoping.
Finishing up a project.
Yeah, I was hoping to actually get that van access as close to the end of, because as you technically know, we really, as you all know with street parking, we've allowed the church to street park for a long time, which is really a hazard. Why we haven't plastered somebody coming out of this building on a Tuesday night is because, and so I was hoping we could push that handicap stall as far as we could. We won't get it quite to the end to add one more clear space to look around. It won't go quite to the end, but we are keeping it as far to that end as possible.
So this is from the street, not from the parking lot?
through the street because the parking lot has too great of a slope.
Okay.
If you look at, stand on the back of that curb, that parking lot has a pretty good slope coming up.
And even where on the other side, even where that existing, those stairs are, the slope is too great there.
It is. I actually don't think that any of their slopes on their property, which this would be a shared parking lot, so we won't go there. I don't think, with the exception of that one piece you're looking at there, I don't think any of these are the actual slope requirements, including the one to the far south, where they've got those 4 handicap stalls. And Mr. Featherstone really wanted to mark every parking stall along Main Street a handicap. And of course, we had indicated to him that our problem with doing that, of course, is you do have a car pull up to the curb, you lose that access anyway. Second of all, we've taken out a whole lot of curb gutter right there, which is a little bit of a concern. After some discussion, he was comfortable with the fact that probably was not the wisest decision, especially if you're pushing a whole lot of people someplace else. Now, I realize you may have that many people who qualify, but
I think the problem is once you mark it, it's better comply.
Yeah.
You know, so ADA is pretty stringent.
well, that's why the initial request from the church, which we told them we could not do, was to completely take they wanted the full basketball court parking for the old school to be turned into handicap for the church. And we told them we would not do that because that is a basketball court. It's had some history here. And again, the problem with that is you can have parking stalls in there, and that's one thing to still play basketball. But if you have parking stalls in there and stop people with it in their handicap, that comes with a little higher requirement, as you mentioned. So we just want to give you the components and say, I think we're there. We're just going to have to get that up to their attorney and see whatever red lines that he provides, but I think we're pretty much there.
Where are the property boundaries?
On that south side is right dead center. There's a cut, a cement cut right in the center of that, and it's almost.
But where, because I've looked over those, but as far as on the park side?
The park side goes to basically, from what our understanding is, it's on the back side of the sidewalk that goes down from, so the park's on this side, and then there's that small green space. It's on their back side of that sidewalk. And that's why.
So it's on the park side of the sidewalk?
It's on
the church side. The church side.
And that's where we put the retaining wall, and we're putting that ready in there just so nobody in the dark.
Church over, right?
I think they like it more because they don't have skateboarders there. We'll say so people don't.
I'll second that motion for the skateboarders.
On the north side, where's the property boundaries? Is all of that, all the parking is?
So it's my understanding, Mike may be able to add some. I think we split 100 down the middle. Mike, do you remember if we split 100 down the middle?
It was.
So the old road, 100 north, when it came through, it's all predated me, but I think it was split right down the middle.
Basically the parking stalls.
Yeah, as I said, they get the first row parking stalls against the sidewalk after that.
So it wouldn't even probably be the middle.
Right. Well, it's probably the middle of 100 and 100.
The parking stalls are pretty close to the middle there.
Okay.
It probably was the middle of 100.
Now, traditionally, of course, we've always had, I think, a very good relationship in regards to shared parking. We've tried very hard, Councilman, and I've been very pleased with our staff to park up here on a Friday evening. And we've always maintained that. I don't think, even though they have a shared responsibility to pay for their portion of the rehab, the storage sale and all that, I believe the city has always just kind of lumped that one on their own and just taken care of it. When we redone the whole parking lot, the church has always been the beneficiary of just us doing that. I don't think we have to charge back on the church. Matter of fact, many years ago, we came across a letter not too long ago. It was actually about a year after I was here. And they were making some concerns about the parking stalls. And so we reread the original agreement and realized that we have been maintaining it all the time. So I went back to them and said, well, it's probably a good point you're bringing up. And we probably ought to look at it entirely, including the church's portion of the maintenance. And then everything kind of resolved okay. We didn't have any more concerns after that.
Go figure.
I'm sure I'm going to hell, but,
Much of that agreement is actually in here, right?
It is, yes, we added that
Is that the complete con? Is that the whole agreement?
That's where it tells you where they vacated 66 feet out, running to 200 and some odd. If you check out the cost of the construction of the parking lot and everything, it's like it was something like $23,000. So if we could go back to those costs, it'd be nice too.
Mayor, if there's no more discussion, I'll make the motion, we approve a joint access agreement with the LDS Church.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a motion and a second.
Dory, got it?
Belton.
Granger, aye.
Clough, aye. Ward, aye.
can I just mention there real quick, I appreciate Councilman Clough because he actually kind of received this assignment from, I believe, the state presidency over there to kind of follow through on some of this. I'm sorry, Councilman Ward, yes. And he got a hold of us and I think he's been kind of a good liaison, worked with us and got on the original call with the church, sat through that, and I do appreciate his efforts.
Well, the hardest thing I had to do was remember which council I was representing.
Well,
You wore those hats well.
Thank you.
I would like to get on so quick.
I guess I'm remembering that, so.
All right, thank you. Item B, consideration to approve a local cooperation agreement for shared capital facilities.
I don't think we
Any
have
other
any
additional-
more. Yeah.
Any additional discussion on that? No, I'll entertain a motion.
Based on the discussion that we had last night in depth related to this issue and our cooperation with Hurricane C, I make a motion to approve the interlocal cooperation agreement for our shared capital facilities as discussed in our workshop related to this.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second.
Ward, aye.
Clough, aye.
Granger, aye.
Belton.
Dory, got it?
Just FYI, Mayor Bramble earlier, and he said that they approved it on their side yesterday too, on their council yesterday. Like we're getting ready to move forward. Anything to report from your assigned committees?
Number
I actually want to go to number 5.
Oh, that's all right. I was trying to find that.
We'll clarify that with you, Mayor, later.
Consideration to confirm appointment of the planning commission. I think I alluded yesterday that I would like to suggest the name of Jason Hanson as our, to serve on the planning commission. I would like to move Commissioner Coates into the mainstream and put Commissioner Hanson as our alternate.
I'm glad to hear Coates is going into the mainstream.
Yeah. Any discussion on that or any questions or comments? Open the-
Mayor, I'm fully supportive of your choice there. I think that's a great choice in reading through those applicants. We had several great applicants. Commissioner Hanson, to me, had some great, he was bring forward to our planning commission, so I would certainly recommend approval for the rest of the council.
I'd like to have approval of Councilman Ward, Councilman Turek. I was impressed by the variety of people who signed up because there were a lot of very well qualified, but I would have to say that the potential of having Commissioner Hanson with his background, I think would only add to the intricacy of what that position requires, a good perspective of the city function and a high level understanding. I was very grateful for his willingness to participate in public service. I think you'd be a great person to have with our planning commission.
Thank you for that confidence. I have a motion and a second.
Ward, aye.
Clough, aye.
Let's get a motion first.
Oh, I'd like
I
to,
thought
with that being said, I'd like to.
No, I just
Okay,
added my opinion
I'll
out
make a
there.
motion to confirm the appointment of Commissioner Hanson as for mayor's choice to serve on the planning commission
As the alternate,
as the alternate,
moving Commissioner Coates on it.
and moving Commissioner Coates on to the board. Mainstream.
Mayor, the motion to the second don't change my vote. Ward, aye.
Okay.
I think he's making the second.
Get a
Let's do it. I think that's a second. He was just making a second.
Are you making
I
this?
heard somebody make a second.
No, there's been no second.
I'll make a second.
There you go.
For the first time.
There you go.
Ward, aye.
I have no idea what we just.
Granger, aye.
Turk guy.
I'm confused.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll go to anything to report on your assignment committees.
Mayor, I have one item that's somewhat of interest to our council. Is we met last week with the group that is looking at the transit system between Springdale and St. George, trying to put together an RFP to go out as a public-private partnership with that. And so the decision was made in that meeting to actually go out and hire a consultant to help us do that. So UDOT was saddled with that decision, is to find three, kind of vet out three firms and bring those back to our committee for a choice then to who we would bring forward as they call it a planner, to help us put together the backbone of the RFP. So there have been several groups of interest that want to come in and bid on that transit, being St. George Shuttle, Dixie Shuttle, SunTran. Several of them have a desire to become that provider. And so I think it's going to become a great asset to our community at no cost. That's the goal of it, is basically that the private partnership picks up, that we can use those UDOT dollars to kind of get things funded and put it in place, and the private businesses then take care of it and service our people from there. So anyway, that's moving
Still be
forward.
under a board, or still be under oversight at the county, correct, for the MPO?
NPO, this is an MPO project, but the MPO took, because we have such a broad body of the MPO, they took that down to, I think there's 4 members each, Washington, St. George, Hurricane, Springdale is represented at the table to help with the RFP together. So anyway, that's kind of where we're to. I'll keep you posted. We plan on meeting within the next couple of weeks to make a decision on who that planner will be that we bring forward.
Everybody else will have our city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of items. Of course, we'll be beginning our chip seal project next week. And just to kind of let you know where those will be taking place so that you can answer those questions when they come in. Is the Landfill Road 20 East and 2000 South and Industrial Road. Those are the total amount. They do a great job with the chip seal process and informing any residents that might be affected by those.
So can I ask a question? The Industrial Road just got done, but it's not, they didn't do the full roadway.
That was a leveling course.
Oh, so they'll come back over that.
They'll chip all of that.
Okay.
One of the projects that was approved in this last budget we're going to be moving forward, of course, is just an FYI, is one of the areas we've been the weakest in our GIS on, and we've known this for a lot of years, we just haven't got to there, is the GIS and mapping of the power system. A lot of course, our new subdivisions have come in as built, and so those have been able to be added in the system. But some of our older stuff has not been input as much. We had actually had a request in the budget request to hire additional GIS, but we actually, as you know, did not recommend that back to the council. The fact of the matter is we've got a very good contract in place that is about, I believe it's $30,000 to complete all the historical input of and get somebody out here to shoot. I don't remember who the engineering firm is, I could look it up, but and so we're very excited about moving on that. That's been a real week for us. We will have the only other thing, I may have mentioned this to you last time, the Green Springs Park design, the detention basin, that's under review right now by the engineer, so I'm hoping that will come back to the council within the next couple of weeks. We are working on an after action report on flood, and we're anticipating that'll be done by midweek of next week, but we're midweek this week, so midweek of next week. As part of that after action report, we of course are compiling the information that the National Weather Service is putting together for us. It'll also be reviewed by an engineering firm to look at those things, and then we'll probably still come back with some recommendations and some thoughts. Of course, that's why a lot of the engineering firm review those as well. We'll provide them with as much data from flows to rainfall, to all the things that we're looking at. So we'll have that after action report to the council, and then work with the council on how we want to decide to address that.
So as part of that, we'll see kind of where those flows came through, kind of what
I think that's
caused the problems that we saw, so then we can start to say, okay.
Yeah, and we're going in, we'll go a step further even. One of the good things that happened, and there are a lot of not good things that happened, but one of the good things that happened, and we're hoping that this will bear some fruit, is the day after the event, Lester Dalton called up NRCS and said, I want you in this vehicle, we're gonna go take a tour. Because as you know, we got in the plans upper basins that will be developed in the future, and that's a component of growth and a component of funding and all those things. And NRCS, of course, would be a participant in those fundings. But getting them down on the ground immediately after the event to see what benefits those possibly could have had for us, and if not that event, something shifted a little bit more to the west. Because we know that these rainstorms, as you see, can only move 2 blocks and have a completely different outcome than they do. We're even hammering them for, instead of participating money, to see if NRCS will fully fund the development of these additional and move that project along. Now, I'm not telling you that, so
Before you move on, can you give me the acronym?
oh, sorry, the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And I don't want to get everybody excited and their hopes up on that, but I did think it was a wise move on the part of Public Works to throw those, and NRCS really is a good organization. They spend a lot of money, they work hard to try to work on these things, and I think it was a good move on the part of Public Works to throw them in and let them see. This is important to us.
So the money that we're going after with this is emergency, EWS, emergency water system, water funds, emergency watershed funds. It's looking very, very promising. And what we're looking at is 2 new basins up on the north side. Now, they're not complete basins, but they're basins that would go in very quickly to prevent any more events from happening like that. And then in the future, we'd still have to develop them more, a little bit more, maybe riprap or something, I don't know. But it's looking very promising.
Well, I'd probably just correct one thing that Mike just maybe said. It's just one additional part of our flood control system. Now, again, like I said, a storm can shift a matter of a quarter of a mile. It's a completely different configuration of flow. What we do know in the work that we've done in times past is whenever we put in structures, we don't get rain there anymore.
Exactly.
It does.
It's just premature.
And so.
So we just put it in everywhere.
Well, I mean, a good example is Cotton Meadows. I mean, we went ahead and spent some good money on Cotton Meadows after that event. I don't even think I think they're drying up out there.
Well, one of the things, not too close to that, one of the things that I appreciated in the response, watching how people reacted to this, I appreciated how Brio went down to their retention area just right off of their development and spent a lot of work with their tractors, moving that all out, expanding the capacity. And watching that made me think, as I toured the area, a lot of those areas that could have had water are now filled with mud and dirt. So one of the things I'm wondering if we should maybe consider like a monsoon protocol, because the intensity of our storms have some unique impacts. There are things just happen over time, either just through the wind blowing or just small events. And by the time we actually have a large event, there's nowhere for the water to go.
Well, we actually do that, and they have a requirement to maintain them. So
when you say they, Brio will indefinitely.
Yeah, well,
That is their base.
any of these large basins.
Another one will pass through water flow.
Yeah, because there was one of the basins, it looks like you're in the process of constructing another one above that. It's not built yet, but it looks like it's in the process of being built.
So one of the things that we've done for at least the past 8 years is in the month of July, all the departments get together along the line you're talking about and have a flash flood meeting to start talking about preparation and look at storm drain, the street curb boxes. We start to look at our vulnerable points. We starting to address those vulnerable points, if there's any,
Clean, getting the ditches clean, getting boxes clean.
so we've always done that about the 1st of July.
1st of July. So on this after action report, we're hoping to identify any vulnerabilities based off of this
Vulnerabilities
flood.
after this event, what could we add to help mitigate those events? Now, these basins we're talking about, they're in our master plan. It's just now, I think we're wanting to move those up, and with NRCS funding, we possibly can get them moved up quicker.
Okay, that would be good. I know that we're growing and growth provides the improvements that happen. But just walking all of those places and getting an email of $22,000 for someone's basement today, how many floods can we anticipate these people holding and carrying when for 40 years there's no floods and all of a sudden 5 years there are? We have the ability to do something, and I just want to see these vulnerabilities to where we can address those. The funding, I'm excited to see some improvements before the development. That would just be spectacular improvement for the citizens that live in that region.
The basin of Brio was really, I'm really grateful we had that.
Oh, man.
Because that did so much for us, not having catching the silts and the debris in that basin. Now the basin over top, because the event was so large, but the amount of water had slowed down and it actually pressurized our 54-inch pipe. That 54-inch pipe was running full and it was blowing the manhole lids off all the way down. And I wish they would have gone down where it enters the open ditch down on I-15 on the other side of Boilers, because that had to have been thrown out a stream of water that just been unbelievable.
I see the fence is gone.
The fence is blown off, and that fence was 20 feet above the flow line. So it would have been incredible to see that. But
And part of this whole dialogue that always needs to happen, and I shared this with some that I talked to on Main Street. I mean, our hazard is flash floods. Historically has always been that way. Historically will probably always be that way. Our problem is flash floods. We have growth now that's starting to experience flash floods that they didn't when they weren't there. When Coral Canyon didn't exist, there was probably flash floods out there, but it didn't bother anybody.
I guarantee you, I watched that road flow over many times.
So we're having that. We're having that circumstance happen, growth, and so more people are being impacted. We are in flash flood country. Matter of fact, what's interesting about this, I've mentioned every arroyo, every ravine is really nature's storm drain system. And our job is to try to catch all of that as best we can. Think about how many there are.
Well, we flatten it out.
Yeah, and funnel it in such a way as that it mitigates. But, you know, the dialogue will need to be a large dialogue that involves, you know, we are in flash flood country. I think it's almost safe for me to say, and I tell citizens all the time, anticipate that you'll be impacted by a flood sometime during your time in Washington County. Now, this is the challenge.
But that being said, should we be concerned? I think one thing that in my feedback, and relates specifically to what we're talking about, there have been many residents that would really like to be involved in seeing what we're identifying, because I think it's important to reach out and show the city's motion. Obviously, we're doing a lot, but not promoting what we're doing doesn't benefit our relationship. I think it's important for us to promote opportunities for the city, especially those impacted, to come and see what we're doing.
So in my conversation with one of the residents, and I kind of just explained from my own experience, because their comment was, well, should we be talking about flood insurance with people? And I said, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, I know for a fact that several people on Main Street were talking about flood insurance. As a matter of fact, I was with the mayor one time when he talked to one particular resident about flood insurance when the last event occurred. Now, whether that person got that flood insurance or not, I don't know. But I said, but these are, timing is so important in these conversations, because when they're hurting and I come in and just say, well, you need to get flood insurance, that doesn't go well, but it's still a rightful dialogue to have for anybody. And so I think that we wanted to, number one, get all the information. That was important to us, to get all the information. It was important for us to, for sure, specifically begin to engage in the individual losses And then also kind of be able to be in a right position to have a good dialogue without, because there are a lot of people feeling vulnerable, there's a lot of people that felt really hurt, and just to make sure that it's the right moment that we have the best discussion. I know we've all tried to reach out kind of individually with those residents too, and in some cases I think that's been the best. I think with this after action report, and we'll talk about it, but I would suspect that we'll just bring that back to work session in the next work session. And of course, the public will be invited to come in on that.
It's likely that some of the process you described could be what we put out as far as information. We could say these are the things that we need to do and that we're doing.
Exactly. That's why I there was one particular individual that really kind of, according to their own admission, was trying to spearhead some of the local stuff. And I met with them at their home and talked about this. The other thing that we did before, and I want to mention this because it's actually I offered this, but I said, but you can come back to me and tell me if this is something that you would like the city to consider. When we had the Cotton Meadows flood, again, we visited with the residents, which in some cases we did here, and we basically just said, we don't know all the answers yet. We're here to see what's happened and see what we can do in the future. But if you remember, we held an event at the community center. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And we dedicated so many proceeds to the residents, and the community was able to come in, whether they were in the South Field or someplace else that was not even impacted, and come in and make some donations. It didn't solve everybody's problem, but more importantly, what I think it did is it showed that the community was willing to come and kind of help out. And that's for sure one thing that Washington City can offer. We have this facility up here. It's a good use for this facility, in my opinion, because we always, as a city, have to balance out, again, what we can do, protecting the financial risk of the rest of the community too, and trying to balance that all. But I would still like to suggest, now they never called me back to say that would be something they would like to take advantage of. We set up a GoFundMe site, we did the event that night, we dedicated so many of the proceeds of the event that night at the community center to it. Wasn't timed, but I believe it was $7,000 or $8,000 that was raised, and then we were able to distribute it. But more importantly, a few of those residents said, that meant a lot to us. It meant a lot to us that our community, the citizens of our community, because that's where you is, came together to give us something and to help out. And that's, I would like us to see us continue to consider that on this.
I would really love to see the aftermath report on the next time we meet then. I think it is time is of the essence to show sincerity. So the better off we are, I think we should show that as soon as possible to show our efforts to make sure this is something improved. I think one thing that's unfair and an appreciation for what was put in, and we're really reflecting on this and shoveling many gutters and looking at this, we went above and beyond on the drainage that was put underneath that road. And it's fair to recognize, and this storm kind of, storms smile at humanity once in a while and say, good try. So I recognize the efforts to go above and beyond the required amount that is above the engineering requested. So recognizing the efforts, I just want to continue to put that, we weed out. And I would like to continue that to be felt by residents too. So thank you.
Kind of echo, having been on this council, and this has been my third flood on Main Street. I actually, to be honest with you, when we did this last storm drain project, said we fixed the problem. When I can check and say that's not going to happen again, and so when this thing hit, it's like, holy cow. I really seriously thought we'd fix it. I thought it was done. I thought we would never, because we've had a pretty severe storm up there, and we went up and looked at it and handled it. It's like, hey, fixed, problem solved.
The night prior to this, we had a heck of a storm up there. It was 1.5 inches in an hour or something like that, which is pretty heavy.
And that was the night we were out of Coral Canyon.
Yeah.
With that event.
Correct.
Any report from the Coral Canyon?
So, Mike, just for curiosity's sake, do you know what the percentage of capacity difference is between 42 and 54 inch pipe?
I have no.
Okay.
It's significant.
It's more than a lot.
It's probably 3 times.
3 times?
Yeah.
Mike,
And
what
he
is
is very
this?
small.
You had an original estimate of CFS coming out.
So,
of
so the engineer that did the Brio development, very, very capable engineer and very, very good on hydrology. He took the numbers based off the flows hitting that 54 inch. And we, so we basically took a full pipe. He knew the elevation of it overflowing that pipe and ran the calculations, and he came up with a three inches of rain in 20 minutes.
That was his count.
That's what he counted out.
That the water flows.
Yeah, I mean, there's, we can't pipe for that kind of thing. It's just, we could, but you couldn't afford to live in the city.
Yeah. You'd have this storm drain system.
Well, your $7 a month, utility bill for storm drain would now be $100.
Maybe somehow we can start to drive on those things.
And you saw that picture. Wasn't that an amazing picture? Just see that water. We actually have another picture we come across through this other just that deluge.
Well, and I think that there are people who would be inclined to want to have to set something up and advertise a little bit. I certainly sense that where I live.
I think it's a good move. I think, again, at the end of the day, it is about community, and we try to come to each other's aid when we can. We just want to make sure we have the right information. We've always found it to be very bad if we get out the wrong information.
Yeah, so that 3 inch, we haven't really got that out, but with this report that we're going to be bringing back to you, we're going to have that narrowed down just as much as we can by working with the National Weather Service and having the engineer work the numbers and come to a conclusion of what this storm could have been.
I'd like to see where a lot of that water, at least as I drove that the next morning, one of the major flows that looked like to me had actually come from the backside of those projects down through the unimproved.
It hit up on the slick rock up on the
correct.
side.
It came down the backside of all those,
Yeah,
right on the main street.
The reality is Brio was actually on the outer edge.
Yeah.
It got very.
Correct, and that's why I would like to actually see the topography of where when it hits those ledges, where's the water running to?
And I was looking at how we've had the 3 upper drainage basins up there, and I was looking at where they drew some of those lines, and like based on that, but I think those lines have changed in some of our drainage basins, whether to the development, the roads, the property, something's changed for more water than we think is coming from the grapevine into that space.
Maybe it was to fly your drone. That
it seems like there's been significant.
Well, we fly annually anyway, so.
I'd like to see where those major washes are coming and going.
It would be huge for us to look into.
Do we know if the National Weather Service is going to give us the actual flow rate, what actually?
Well, their flow rates are calculations based off of their radar images. That's how they calculate.
What we're looking for from getting the National Weather Service is we're trying to get their actual slides and radar on the event. I think we pretty well know. We actually all tied in as staff to the National Weather Service, so we're watching that, big red thing. But they'll give us the actual slides. We're going to show where that's located. And then they'll do their calculation.
So you have Brian McInerney, you've probably seen him on TV. He's the one that always gives the predictions on rain and snow. He called us up directly. He has our numbers. When he sees a big event coming in, he will call us and warn us.
So one of the things that we do in these emergency situations, and of course I've known Brian for 20 years, and we are in constant communication. Matter of fact, the feeds that you saw on Saturday that were going out on Facebook was basically our discussions on the phone with the National Weather Service and getting their predictions on how. The challenge with our environment is these thunderstorms will crop up very, very fast. And they look at atmospheric disturbance, that's huge to them. And so when there's a high atmospheric disturbance and hot temperatures, that's the tendency for us to explode quickly. But again, where it's going to explode, exactly how it's going to travel, we do know the national, that's the business you want to be in because that is the most imprecise. Basically,
You mean be wrong more than 50% of the time?
That's right.
But still have a job.
I'll say just 2 other things if I can. Just there was a couple of, I mentioned this today, there's some general questions we'll get answered for you on the irrigation. There's some very specific questions of this individual that I would like him to meet with the people who manage the irrigation. So we'll bring him in. I try very hard to bring people in a lot of times because more can be covered than when we're trying to identify everything we're writing, and us writing everything exactly right back and not goes back and forth and see that. There are some general issues such as ownership, share. We've actually got give me the name of Hafen. Rick Hafen was our water attorney for years and years and years. And so we've actually got a paper we find out, I think, showing share ownership and how that works under the state of Utah and other things. And, but those are good questions. So we'll kind of answer those. Now, it's always delicate of how you get that out. And that's probably the bigger challenge. And so that we're working on that. That'll take a few days. We just kind of have to mesh these things in as we're running the city each day too. And then finally, I thought I'd end on this.
So before you move off of that one, and I appreciate you bringing it in, sitting down. I would rather have a conversation face to face than on an email. But some of those questions I would love the answer.
No, that's what I was just saying. We're going to get you some general responses to the general questions because there were some good questions that we have answers for. I'm a little old school in this sense. Well, you know, we don't like to play tit for tat in a social media nor in an electronic. We prefer having people in to talk specifically to them. But also, there's a lot of people that just get entertained by watching the thing. And sometimes it's informative, but we want to make sure that we're very careful with people's personal problems, making a public theater. And so we got a question on Facebook today. We'll answer that question on Facebook's page today. But I probably won't take some of these personal emails and start to address them on public.
I think there was enough in there that I understand your concern. Those are a lot of concerns that hit me, so anything that I can be better informed, I would love to see that.
Yeah, the council particularly, we never want you to feel that you don't have the right answers, and it's always our intention, even though it's hard to stay in front of that, to give you always the answer at exactly the precise moment you're being asked.
I don't think that's, for me, it's not, I don't have to necessarily have all the answers. I just want someone to be answered.
Oh, well, yeah, and I hope you have some confidence that we do take these. We have, I think, a very good track record in the city of not just sloughing off individuals. We like personal relationships with them because we think it tears down walls as well. Then the final thing I thought I'd mention, because I think that this is just, I don't know, you may have an interest, you may not. Your council chairs have been ordered. Including the changing of the chairs of the council members. And I suspect there'll be more than 3 or 4 weeks in delivery. Did you catch that, Councilman Bellison? Because
I didn't take it really smiling inside.
You really rode me hard on that issue.
So what do we do with these existing chairs?
They're going to the
community center. Right. That's what I was.
Yeah, the community center has a great need for additional chairs, and quite frankly, for their purposes, many of these chairs are great.
So they use those in the community center, then when they have children who are unruly, they just make them sit on these chairs.
That'll work well through it, yeah.
In the corner with their nose against the wall.
I think you'll really like the chairs that have been ordered too. I think they'll be able to extend 2 hours on every council meeting.
That'll give us another 2 or 3 years out of Mr. Shaw here. With the comfort of the chairs, we can extend the service as long as.
It better be a requirement.
Since we don't want that to happen, Mayor, since the manager's done, I'll make the motion that we close our city council and move into a closed session to discuss personnel.
Character professional.
Second.
A motion, a second?
Board items.
Bellis and I.
Correct, guy.
Take a 5-minute break from this.
Mike just gave it so quickly.
I know. So quickly.
Roger came.
There's some people that can learn from that, to say, show it goes a lot faster.
Purchase of property at 45 North Main Street. I'm thinking it's this property by the church. You know, the agreement, the property that's in the agreement for the.
Are we the buyer now?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
My son.
I don't think Brown will just. That sounds like, Mayor, did you know that?
It's got headlights.
Hasn't went there.
It's on board meetings at 8.